Hello everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Em, if you don't know me, and I am currently on a journey where I'm watching all of the Disney animated movies in chronological order with my husband and ranking them on a tier list. But before I get into our thoughts, I like to give a little bit of history to provide some context for these movies. I think that there's a lot of history, and I think that as someone who loves to dive into little bits of Disney history, this has been a very big passion project of mine. But let's get on to Peter Pan and its history. So Peter Pan was released on February 5th, 1953, and premiered at Radio City Music Hall in New York. And it is based on the novel of the same name written by J.M. Barrie in 1904. It stars Bobby Driscoll as Peter Pan, who had played Johnny in Song of the South and Jeremiah in So Dear to My Heart, as well as he was in Treasure Island. Oh, and that random misogynistic boy in Melody Time. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I think I'm going to insert a clip right here.
Ah, shucks, a woman in the story.
And Catherine Beaumont as Wendy, and she had played Alice in Alice in Wonderland, Bill Thompson as Mr. Smee, who had played White Rabbit in Alice in Wonderland, as well as voices in other Disney productions. Bill Thompson was all over there. And Heather Angel as Mrs. Darling, and she had also voiced Alice's sister, Margaret, in Alice in Wonderland. And Walt Disney had seen the play version of Peter Pan as a child, and he also starred in the role growing up. So in 1935, he planned on it to be his second animated feature after Snow White. So I kind of got conflicting sources on whether or not he planned this to be a second animated feature. I got second and I got fourth, but when I watched the documentary, it talked about him planning it in 1935. So take that with what you will. I kind of got different sources on that. So just know that the seeds were being planted in 1935 near the end of Snow White's production. In April of 1938, Roy went to Europe to acquire the rights from the Great Ormond Street Hospital for Sick Children, who the rights were given to for Peter Pan after J.M. Barrie's death. If you want to know more about that, I would watch Finding Neverland. I know it's kind of a fictionalized one, like Saving Mr. Banks, but it might give a little bit more context as to J.M. Barrie and why he wrote Peter Pan and why all these things happened with him. It's a good movie. I've seen it. It's pretty good. And, but when Roy went to Europe to acquire the rights, Paramount had already acquired them from the Children's Hospital. But by October, Walt had worked out a deal with Paramount and bought the rights to create Peter Pan. And in January of 1939, a contract was signed with the Great Ormond Street Hospital for Sick Children. And by May of 1939, the story of Peter Pan began to develop. So there were many possibilities explored with the story, including starting the film with Peter Pan's backstory. But Walt felt that the subject of Peter's backstory could be its own movie in and of itself. And so jumping in straight into the story would be best. And another abandoned opening would be starting in Neverland and having Peter come to Wendy's house to kidnap her so that she could be their mother. This was deemed too dark for the opening of a Disney film, which totally makes sense. In some ways, I feel like Peter Pan has some dark moments. Tiger Lily literally almost drowning, and the moment with Hook and Tinkerbell and the Bomb and Peter and all these things, and Tink almost dying. Oh, sorry, that's a spoiler. But all these things of it has its dark moments. It has its dark moments, but I do agree that that choice would have been a little weird for a Disney movie, especially coming from Alice in Wonderland, which was all very bright and whimsical. It would be very interesting. And although I know Disney goes very dark, Bambi has the dark moment that I'm not going to talk about. a song was written by Frank Churchill, who wrote the music for Snow White, and it was about the pirates singing about their lifestyles to the children. So essentially it was basically like A Pirate's Life, but it was cut in favor of the shorter A Pirate's Life. And in 1941, the basic story structure for the film was complete. However, when Pearl Harbor was bombed later that year, the U.S. military took over the studio in order to make training and propaganda films. So production on Peter Pan as well as Alice in Wonderland were put on hold, as well as a lot of other ones that I believe I've talked about before. So like Fun and Fancy Free, I believe, got put on hold or might have continued in very small ways. I think Cinderella also got put on hold. The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, I believe, also got put on hold. So all of these ones that kind of I've talked about recently that came out after the war. And by 1947, the studio had begun to recover financially from the stress that the war had put on them. So due to this, Walt wanted to begin creating full-length animated films again. I believe I've talked about the ultimatum from the bank before. That's in my other videos, but the bank essentially gave him an ultimatum about working on films. I couldn't get a clear-cut answer over whether or not Peter Pan continued to be worked on or was shelved, or just, I think it was shelved until the studio began to financially recover again and all these things. I talked about that, I believe, in my Alice video and in my Cinderella video. So if you want to know more about that, I think that's in there. And then the nursery scene went through many changes. In one version, Mrs. Darling finds Peter Pan's shadow and shows it to Mr. Darling. In another, Nana goes to Neverland with the children, and we see the film through her perspective. And in another, John did not go with the other children because he was too serious. And then another kind of change is that Tinkerbell was supposed to openly tell Captain Hook the location of Peter's hideout. Just kind of like he wasn't supposed to manipulate her, you know, in the way that he does in the movie. Like, she was just supposed to be like, here's Peter Pan's hideout. I don't care what you do. But, like, Walt felt that this was out of character for her, so they kind of adapted to Hook manipulating her into telling them. In earlier scripts, there were many scenes with the mermaids and pirates akin to the dwarfs in Snow White. I assume that just means, like, they would have some shenanigans and antics. But they were cut due to pacing. And female actors were considered for Peter Pan, but it was ultimately decided that Bobby Driscoll would get the role. This broke barriers because he was the first male to play Peter Pan, at least on a larger scale. I know that in school plays and like in school versions, like Peter Pan would sometimes be played by a boy, but like on tours and in movies, this was like the first time that Peter had been actually played by a male. And he also played Peter in the live action reference for the film. Some of it, I know that others were like somebody else, but I think that for more like close-up shots, Bobby Driscoll was the reference. This was actually his last role with Disney. We can kind of talk about Bobby Driscoll another time, and if you want to do your own research, it's really sad what happened to Bobby Driscoll. And yeah, it's just very tragic. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, maybe I can talk about it in the comments, but it's really tragic what happened to Bobby Driscoll. And following the tradition of other animated films, a live-action version of the film was recorded to help animators. Milt Kahl animated Peter Pan and had a difficult time animating him floating in midair. He said, I think he said something like it was one of like the hardest things I've ever done in animation. And I think that it was just like pioneering for Peter Pan, because I don't think I think that this was very big for Disney because they had never animated someone floating in the air like this for a long period of time. I think Peter Pan is like floating in the air for like, I don't know, if I had to guess, like 75% of the movie maybe. Like when he's on screen, he's most often flying or floating in the air. And so I think that that's interesting that like, I think that's different, you know, like something different that Disney did. I think that a lot of the flying scenes, the camera work in it is so well done in this film. And I think it's just very influential in that way of like animation effects and taking animation in a different way. And I think Walt even said, I don't think it was Walt. I think it was somebody else in my documentary that I watched about Peter Pan for research, kind of said something like, Peter Pan lent itself very well to, and much better to, animation than any other medium, because it allows you to kind of be put in that and believe that they are actually flying. And I think that's really cool. I mean, like, if you go see the play, you're like, wires, 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 wires. And there's limitations with the play version. And so I feel like, I don't know, like, I think that that's really cool in this way of, like, it's kind of it's kind of the building upon of more animation techniques and more effects. And Walt did not want Bobby Driscoll's facial features to influence the character. Like, at one point he was noticing that Bobby Driscoll's facial features were really influencing Peter Pan, and I still believe it did. Like, I hate to say it, it still did. And I don't think that's necessarily a problem. Cinderella did the same thing in a way. And I think that just, like, when you have the actor who is doing the rotoscoping stuff, the live action reference, I think that's just going to naturally happen. And the melody for Second Star to the Right was originally written for a cut song from Alice in Wonderland called Beyond the Laughing Sky. And Never Smile at a Crocodile, like, the lyrics were cut. It's the one that you hear when the crocodile comes. But Never Smile at a Crocodile, like, its melody kind of was cut, but appears in some soundtracks and media surrounding Peter Pan. I know it appears in the musical version of Peter Pan. I know that has, like, no affiliation with Disney, though. Like, that's just a musical version of Peter Pan. But I thought that was worth mentioning. And the film made $107 million when adjusted for inflation worldwide at the first theatrical release. But it has a lifetime gross of $536.4 million when adjusted for inflation. And it was entered into the 1953 Cannes Film Festival. And this was actually the final original film released under the RKO label before Walt created his own production company, Buena Vista Film Distribution. So I talked about this in my Melody Time video more extensively than I did in my Make Mine Music video, but I did touch on it. So Musicland was released in, I believe it was 1954 or 1955. But it was essentially Walt wanted to start making his own movies under his own labels, but he had a contract to uphold with RKO. So essentially what he did is he's like, great, I'm going to slap together different segments from Melody Time and Make Mine Music. And he was like, here you go, RKO, release this. And so that was kind of the last thing in their contract. So he was like, okay, here's your last movie. So Peter Pan is technically the last original film because slapping multiple segments from two different movies together does not an original movie make, in my opinion. But anyway, the Musicland movie itself has been lost to time. I think it's just because they didn't make an effort to preserve it. They're like, meh. And they never re-released it. And they never released it on DVD or video, I don't think. So it's like, because it's Melody Time and Make Mine Music. So what's the point? You know, it's basically like a double feature re-release of both. So, yeah. Anyway, that's a conversation for a different time. But Musicland technically lost media for Disney. And the film had positive reviews, but was criticized for the lack of faithfulness to the play Peter Pan is actually Michael Jackson's favorite film, with his estate Neverland Ranch, which is in Santa Barbara, California, being named after the film. So, like the other ones, I try not to give my opinion too much until I give my thoughts. But it's kind of time to talk about the elephant in the room. I like to use quotes so that it's not so much of my thoughtsy, it's more other people's thoughts that can kind of help you grow your opinion, and we can hear basically from within the company itself how people feel, how some people feel. And so it's kind of now time to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the depiction of, I say Native Americans, but they are technically based on Native Americans, I think. But Neverland is fictional, so Native Neverlandians, but based on Native Americans, so I'm going to call them Native Americans. So this has been a hot topic for a while, with Disney Plus issuing a warning for the movie at some point. It seems that has gone away. So the movies that used to have warnings, when I've been watching them, do not have warnings anymore. I don't know if that became a problem for Disney, if it got too much backlash. I don't know what happened. So, I don't know. But Eric Goldberg, who directed Pocahontas, talked about how the depictions were caricatures. And Mark Davis, who is one of Disney's 9 old men and pretty heavy in the company. He's a directing animator. Oh, and he drew Tinkerbell for this movie. He was the animation director in charge of Tinkerbell for this movie. And he said himself, quote, "I'm not sure we would have done I'm going to say this for, he uses a different term, but I'm going to replace it with Native Americans." So, quote, "I'm not sure we would have done the Native Americans if we were making this movie now. If we had, we wouldn't do them the way we did back then," close quote. And the song has even been edited out of television airings of the film. And in 2021, Disney Plus removed the movies for any account 6 and younger. However, I can't confirm that is fully still the case. When I went on my nephew and niece's Disney Plus account, the movie still showed up when I searched. So, take with that what you will. I do know that there might have been a small controversy. I saw some parents being a little bit upset because it felt like the choice was taken away from them. So the choice to show their child and inform them and have a conversation was taken away from them. And I agree. Like, the warning to me, I'm okay with. You know, give a whole 10 second warning. That's okay. I don't feel that that's a problem. I don't understand why Disney got rid of that. I do kind of wish, because I know that their problem was, some kids can't read. So why don't you just have a voiceover of what the text said on it for children? I don't know. Yeah, I kind of agree with their decision to quietly allow it to be on kids' accounts again, because I don't know, I think that's stupid. Call me crazy. I think it's your decision as a parent whether or not to show that film to your child, and I think that but the other problem is they were removing these classics. So something like Peter Pan and Dumbo, I think people were really upset about, because they're like, oh, my kid can't now watch Dumbo on their Disney Plus account? That's kind of weird. My kid can't watch Peter Pan on their Disney Plus account? That's kind of weird. And so, yeah, I feel like it was a decision that was not thought through. Anyway, continuing on from that kind of heaviness, the ride Peter Pan's Flight can be found at all 6 Disney parks around the world. As I'm recording this, I know that Disney has announced another park in another part of the world, but it is not opened yet. And the characters are also widely available to meet and are featured in many parades and shows throughout the parks. And Peter Pan Return to Neverland was released in 2002. That is the sequel to Peter Pan. I will be watching that. I am doing the Disney Toon Studios, or just, I don't technically think, is that Disney Toon Studios? Well, I know it was released into theaters. It wasn't just direct to DVD. I think it was released into theaters. But I am doing direct to DVD sequels as long as they don't involve a TV show attached to them. So, yes, I am watching this one. Yes, I will talk about it. So hold your horses. I have no idea when I am going to talk about it. So these are just kind of little spin-off things that I talk about here because, I don't know, just kind of history stuff. So the Disney Junior series, Jake and the Neverland Pirates, features characters of Peter Pan from what I remember, because I watched it a little bit as a kid, not too much. I believe I know Captain Hook and Smee show up. I have no idea if any of the other characters show up. And the Disney Fairies series is based off of the adventures of Tinkerbell and her friends. I will get into that because I will also talk about the Disney Fairies series. So I'll get into more detail about that when I talk about the Disney Fairies series. A live-action adaptation titled Peter Pan and Wendy was released on Disney Plus in April of 2023. I remember seeing that, not thinking it looked good. I don't know. If you want me to watch live-action adaptations of the Disney movies and rank them on a tier list, let me know, because I need something to do after this series ends. Anyway, that's the end of my history segment, so let's get on to my husband and I's thoughts on Peter Pan. So we just finished Peter Pan, and I don't know, Shmee! So it seemed like you liked it.
I liked it. It was pretty good.
I like Peter Pan. I will say it's not my favorite. And there's kind of multiple reasons why it's not my favorite. It just, I don't know. Like, I think it's up to personal preferences. Like, for me, while this is magical, it feels like a boy movie. I hate to say it feels like a boy movie. It's not a girl movie. It's a boy movie. And I hate to use, terms like that, but I'm the only the two female protagonists don't have much to them in their substance. And for that reason, and I don't want to hear there's not much to Alice, there's not much to Cinderella, because there is a lot to those characters.
I mean, sorry to interrupt, but there's not really that much to the boy protagonists either. Peter Pan doesn't really grow across the course of the story.
That's kind of true. There is more to the female protagonist than Peter Pan himself. But but I feel like there's just, I don't know, just everything that happens is so much more. I don't know if it passes the Bechdel test. That's all I have to say. I'm not sure about this. I don't know. I guess the best way to just put this is it's not my favorite Disney movie. I like Peter Pan. I'm nostalgic for it. I will say, once they get to Neverland, all the beauty and wonder and Disney magic is kind of gone for me. And then they do all their stuff, and then it's the end, and then they leave Neverland, and there's the whole pretty sequence with the pixie dust again, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is a pretty movie again. And it kind of just I feel like the other movies that we've watched, so Cinderella and Alice in Wonderland, they're pretty throughout. And that's not to say that Peter Pan isn't pretty. It's just it has these really gorgeous moments, and then it kind of has the middle section where there's not these really pretty moments, and then the end has these really pretty moments.
I think part of that comes from a lot of the set pieces that the plot takes place in aren't terribly interesting. Like Skull Rock, the outside of it looks sick. The inside of it is just a cavern. Right? And they spend a good 10, 15 minutes there. And so, like, I do get what you mean. Like, they have a lot of really pretty, like, background art and stuff, but, like, the parts that the characters are moving around in, with the exception, I did really like the set piece around the captain's quarters. I don't know if you looked around too much. It's a really, really gorgeous set piece that they use.
The harpsichord, pretty sick.
But the other one
Mermaid,
was...
I'm not done.
Oh.
Mermaid Lagoon is also very pretty as well.
Yeah. I was going to say the hangman's tree. The interior of that. Very, very, like... It makes me think about being in Boy Scouts and, like, screwing around in the woods and stuff. Very, very, exactly like what I would dream of wanting to have in like a little home encampment.
Well, that's what I feel like the Lost Boys essence kind of is, like their kind of thing with the Native Americans where they're like,
that's true.
You set us free, we set you free kind of thing where it's like we get to do whatever we want. Yeah, it's just play.
Yeah.
Speaking of, now we get to talk about the elephant in the room, which is the depiction of the Native Americans. And I will say, context doesn't make it any better, but context informs us, okay? This is a book published in the turn of the century, so the early 20th century. And then we have this 1950s interpretation of the turn of the century. Keep in mind this was the era of I'm going to use this term just because this is the term that they used at the time, of kids playing cowboys and Indians. And oh my gosh, it's so crazy if you look up cartoons from that time, especially from like Looney Tunes and stuff.
Looney Tunes is the bad one.
It's bad.
Okay, here's what I was going to say. What I had said earlier to you while we were watching the movie is the natives. It's not just them that are being depicted in a very characteristic way. One of the pirates is very clearly meant to be a Turkish stereotype, and even Hook himself is meant to be like a heavily characterized French person in his design and his dress. It's very French piracy. Like very, very aggressively stereotypical French piracy. And so, like, obviously, we can all say that they are wrong caricatures. And I would definitely say it's worse on the natives. It definitely is.
The song alone is just... you watch it and you're kind of just a little bit like, yeah, this was the time period it took place in.
Yeah. But I don't know. To me, it's like, it feels like the only characters that weren't like oppressive, like very obviously caricatures was Wendy and her brothers. Like even like, Peter Pan still has a lot of exaggerated facial features and the such, and all the Lost Boys tend to, some of them have really like almond eyes, not that they're Asian or nothing, but it's just exaggerated in how they look. They have big noses. They have short, scrawny or tubby physique. They're all like exaggerated. Now, again, like I said, I think the natives probably have it the worst, and I think it's okay to admit that that's what makes it wrong, especially in this case because it does have a racial connotation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's lightened a little bit to understand that in the movie, it's not like it's the natives here are being depicted as bad guys, and so they're given this comically, racist depiction or something like that. It's more of a stylistic thing for a lot of the characters, and yes, the natives probably had it the most exaggerated, but you can kind of see where that exaggeration partially comes from.
Yeah, and something that I want to talk about is there's a moment where Wendy is told by a female Native American, by a Native American woman, to...
I don't know if this is meant to be Native America, though, because it's Neverland.
That's true. That's something, like, that was gonna be my next. That was gonna be my next thought. But before we dive into that, she was talking about how she can't be a part of the dance, which I know that there's some people can feel free to correct me. I know there's some Native American cultures where I don't know if this is just developed modernly that both genders can dance and take part in the dances. I don't know. Maybe some dances are gendered. I don't know. I don't know if that's just a time period thing.
Well, I would say be careful with like assumptions like that, because the various different Native cultures aren't really a monolith. Mm-hmm. It's almost like saying like Americans and Europeans have the same culture, when that's really demonstrably wrong. It's very much the same between different tribes. There are similarities, just as much as there are similarities between Americans and those in the UK, British people. I don't know what the proper term is. It slipped my mind here, but we both have a version of The Office. Just throwing something silly, right?
We both have a version of Ghosts.
Right? So clearly they're both the same culture, right? Which is silly to say.
Yeah. I was just like, in the way of like critique, I was pointing something out that is being basically blanket statemented in this movie, like it's gospel for all tribes, I guess, when I'm not sure if that's the case even at the time or modernly anymore. So, yeah.
Or at least they are preying upon the stereotype that influenced the caricature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, to my other point that you kind of touched on that I'd like to continue, what is Neverland? Like, what is the dichotomy of Neverland? Why is there Native American style natives there, and then you go in following the leader, they go through a rainforest and Africa and like a bongo style, kind of like Canadian, northeastern America, like with pine trees and all these things. And what is Neverland? Where is it? Not like, where is it? I know it's like a magical kind of land in the sky, but I'm like, what is this dichotomy? If we're dissecting all of these things, like what is Neverland? And why are there Native American style natives there? Because that just doesn't make sense to me.
So it makes me wonder if the Lost Boys don't grow up, or at least that's kind of the heavy implication, is that they go here and they stay that age forever. Obviously, some people disagree outside of the story, but like generally that's the idea that's presented in the movie, is that when they are here, they stay that age. It makes me wonder if Neverland is meant to be almost like a place where forgotten things go, and they stay there because, they're lost boys, right? They clearly either became lost or were lost to begin with, right? And so it makes me wonder if, like, a lot of Neverland is, and this is me reading into it, this is not really expressed in the movie, but it makes me wonder if, in the same sense as the Lost Boys being literally lost, if, something like the pirates were lost at sea, or, so on and so forth. If maybe all of these other things that were here at the island were things that were lost that ended up here. I don't know. That's just me over analyzing and reading into it. The movie does not present that, but that's just what I would think in terms of like why Neverland makes no sense. Well, it's because it's pulled all these lost things, and those lost things don't change. So rather than like, the taiga biome and the savanna biome that are within 2 minutes of each other, right? The reason why they don't blend together in any type of way is because, just like the boys, they don't grow up, they don't change either.
Oh my gosh, guys, we found the lost tribe of Roanoke. Do you not know about that?
I don't know what that is.
I think it's Roanoke. So okay, let me gather my thoughts here. If I'm wrong, somebody can correct me in the comments. I believe it's Roanoke. So there's been this whole conspiracy of what happened to the lost tribe of Roanoke. So when America was settled by the Europeans, right, there was a lot of people on the East Coast, and there was just one city and like kind of established city where everybody disappeared. Native Americans gone. Wait, no. Was it the Native Americans that were gone? No, it was all of those Europeans gone. And so it is basically very, very heavily theorized that they went and they lived with the Native Americans. But that's just my joke. You made me explain my joke. It's not funny anymore.
Maybe that's what happened to them. And maybe that's why there's natives there, too, that are very clearly meant to be, like, Native American-inspired natives.
I don't know. Listen, I think it's in the original book. So, do I know why J.M. Barrie decided to include Native Americans in there? No. And in fact, I think it's very random for what it is. It's a pirate story. And then you...
I don't think it's that far out of the course, because where piracy, at least as we depict it, mainly came from stories of the Caribbean, right? I mean, even the name of the movies, Pirates of the Caribbean, right? But other pirate stories, you know, you have Robinson Crusoe, you have
What'd you say?
Treasure Island,
Robinson... What?
Crusoe.
Robinson Crusoe?
Caruso, thank you.
I had to make sure we were talking about the same thing.
Yes, Caruso. And
What did you say? Robinson Crusoe?
well, I was gonna say, like, the two main spots is usually the Caribbean or the Spanish Main, are usually, like, historically the big pirate hotspots that people are spending. You know, either if they are European style pirates, they're gonna be in the Spanish Main. They're gonna be, you know, in the different locks around the UK, etc. But if they're on the American side of things, where a lot of them did try to escape to, they would be in the Caribbean area.
Well, think about it this way. Never mind. That's a stupid thing to say. I was going to say something about J.M. Barrie at the turn of the century writing this book. And the concept of Native Americans, I'd assume, had gotten around to England at this time. Like, of Native Americans,
imagine.
I would imagine. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they had become, like, this kind of fanciful caricatures of themselves.
That makes sense. It makes me think of, like, Pocahontas or Sacagawea, how they would travel to Europe after a lot of their stories because they would usually be married to a white guy and be forced to. It's a sad context. Sad context as to why.
We will continue this story with that in Pocahontas too.
Yes, but like that happened. That there were people who were Native Americans that were now very minorly, of course. These were very, very, very small minority, but had lived in UK and other close by countries like France. So I'm not surprised that rather, inappropriately and mildly insensitively, but if it was normal for people in the UK to see them as almost like these mystical figures of sorts, again, very inappropriately, because they're just humans like you and I, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the attitude at that time.
I wouldn't either. I think that we should watch Finding Neverland. It's like a Saving Mr. Banks, but for Peter Pan, the book, the play.
Sure. We can watch that sometime.
Something that I thought that kind of came to me is Tinkerbell almost dying in this is not made that big of a deal. It's made such a big deal in the play. Like, Tinkerbell almost dies, and it becomes a whole thing of, like, Peter Pan has the entire audience saying, I believe in fairies, I believe in and stuff like that. And it's how it is.
Disney removed it because that's cringe.
Okay, but then they had Miska Muska Mickey Mouse do it later on, so...
Well, that's not cringe because it's for kids. It's something we chant together. Miska, Muska, Mickey Mouse.
And this is for children.
Well, yeah. But I feel like in this story, but like in Mickey Mouse Clubhouse, the whole thing is like narrated to you, right? You're a friend that's coming along on the journey. Imagine it, like if in Peter Pan, they just like stopped. They were like, they turned to the screen and they went, "Hello, audience. We need your help."
I believe in
Exactly.
fairies.
Like, you know how like that's where the cringe factor comes. It's janky.
But there wasn't much of a scene there other than Peter Pan being like, "Come on, Tink, I need you. I care about you." And then that's it. Switch scene, peril.
I would think it's still cringe.
Can we talk about how Michael lifted the cannonball bear when he couldn't before? He just magically could. Do you remember that?
Because his brother was helping him. You don't remember? It was him and
John is not that strong. Have you seen John?
Well, they have small-sized cannonballs. I mean, it's big enough to fit in a teddy bear. Do you know how big a teddy bear is for an average, like, what is he, like 5 years old?
I think he's like 3.
Yeah, like 3. And it's like almost like a quarter of his height. Like, that's a big bear, but it's not that big of a bear because he is a 3-year-old.
I think he's also like a small 3-year-old too.
Yeah.
Anyway, but like, so Disney Plus is 100% taking their warning off. Because we did not see a warning before this one. We have not seen a warning before any of the ones that we have watched before. So Disney Plus has definitely quietly taken their warning off. Do I know why? No. Do I respect the fact that they're letting parents make their own decisions? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's your responsibility whether or not you inform your child. I think when I was a kid, that scene is not my favorite.
I feel like me as a kid, and maybe this is my boy brain, that's like if I saw the native song, I would not think, "Ah ha ha, wow, this is so real of what natives are actually like." I'd be like, "Dang, this is fetching cool. I wish I was native," or something like that. Like, I think that would actually be what my brain was thinking as a 3-year-old if I had watched that. Like, I don't think I would be like, "Ah ha ha, look at the silly natives." I'd be like, "This is fetching cool."
Maybe that's just the difference between boys and girls. I was thinking about The Weight of the World and how stereotypes affect society at like 5. You had some opinions about Tinkerbell at the beginning.
Oh yeah, I still feel the same. She's a little mean. She's kind of a jerk. The whole movie, like, I don't think that changes. She's kind of a jerk the whole way through.
After you pointed that out, I was like, okay, the Tinkerbell movies, movies are supposed to be a prequel to this. How does she get like this? Does she like trauma bond to Peter Pan and like something happen and she grows like grossly attached to him to get like this way about it? I don't know.
That's what I was also thinking of now that you thought of that. Like, I've seen the Tinkerbell movies, at least the first one, before I'd even seen the Peter Pan. And I was also kind of feeling that of like, dang, this is not what I expected at all from Tinkerbell.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, I love my girl Tink. She's so sassy. She's a thick queen and I love her from a fellow thick queen. I'm Anyway. Anyway, but I love Tink and I think that she's iconic and I don't know. Yeah, I just her characterization in this movie, like looking at it, it's a little interesting at times. Wendy can be a little annoying, but I don't think she deserves any of that.
I don't think Wendy's really that annoying. Like you said, she's kind of a blank slate. Like, I don't feel like any of the characters really grow. It's kind of like a Paddington effect, where the main character doesn't really, like, grow at all. And that's not really a bad thing, right? Because it's just meant to be a kid's story. But at the same time, sometimes some elements kind of show. And you're like, well, what kind of person is Michael, John, or Wendy? They're kids. That's about all you can say.
Yeah, that's a very good critique. Nobody, well, like, I mean, I definitely think that Wendy grows as a person throughout the story. Is it very minuscule? Yes.
Yeah.
Is it very spelled out for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not as subtle as Alice's journey.
And I also feel like Wendy's isn't as important to her, but more so important to her circumstances, right? She only has this conflict because of the way her dad was shouting and hollering the night before, right? And so like that's the only reason why they have this what's the word I'm looking for? This question of like growing up and stuff. Like that's the only reason they really have it. If it wasn't for that, like there's no evidence that Wendy really felt that like impromptu. I get it. It's a kid's movie. You don't need to have something super deep in it. But that is just something that did kind of stand out a bit to me, is like, you know, it's great, you know, characters, they beat the bad guys, they, you know, enjoy their time together, but there's not really too much growing that happens throughout the story.
I loved the crocodile. We loved the crocodile over here in this house. We were hooting and hollering a little bit with all the little gags and the little personification of the crocodile. We thought it was hilarious. Something that I didn't tell you that crossed my mind is I'm like, why is Captain Hook be looking like Weird Al?
It kind of does. If Weird Al had like the like thin mustache style that he has, the Frenchie style mustache, I think he could pass. I think he could pass pretty well. You know what they need? They need to do a Peter Pan remake. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of like the Sonic movie where they pick the villain character to be played by someone who does not make sense at all. Like, no offense to Jim Carrey, but he ain't Eggman. But then he somehow just kind of like makes Eggman work for him. I feel like Weird Al could do the same with Captain Hook. He would not make sense as a Captain Hook at all, but then I feel like he would just make, you know, Captain Hook make sense.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. We like Weird Al in this household. He's fun. Anyway, but like, what else? The crocodile. What else did we like? I don't know. The songs are good. The second Star to the Right, classic. You Can Fly, classic. All the other ones I'm like, about, you know. Something I did notice is, holy cow, this is just me as like somebody who studies voice and all these things and is studying to be a voice teacher. I do not know if Catherine Beaumont was dubbed for this movie or not, but holy cow, the vocal maturity that has happened in such a short time for her to sing that song that she does and in the way that she does, that's really cool. But it might have just happened when her voice matured. She might have been dubbed. I will do my research on that. Yeah, there was a few things I've noticed. Yeah, I don't know. I think that all of I think just like the background art of Neverland and the background art of just like the of London is really gorgeous in this movie. I think that just all of it is, I think it's a good movie. Do you have anything else to say before we rank it?
We can fly. We can fly. He can talk? That's right. I'm a flying talking donkey.
That's what he said during the scene. Anyway, so I'd put it in A.
I think, my opinion at least, I know this list is your opinion, I think A is too generous for the critiques it does have, being the character development and its over-reliance on its designs based on caricatures.
You're kind of right with that one.
I understand my opinion.
It's not above Pinocchio, though.
No.
It's not above Pinocchio. And I can't remember what's right underneath Pinocchio. I'm going to have to think about this. I'm going to have to look at my tier list and think about this. But it is not above Pinocchio. So it might be second or third in the B tier. Like, it's not bad by any means. But I definitely, like, let's think about the material we have in A tier. We have Snow White in A tier. We have Cinderella in A tier. We have Alice in Wonderland in A tier. Yeah. And those are A tier moves. They might even be S tier. We might move them up to S tier. And then these ones might be moved up to A tier. Like, but this is, like, no hate to anybody who loves Peter Pan. But I just think it was so much more magical when I was a kid. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if I'm just a cynical adult, which I'm not a cynical adult.
Are. You grew up, and that's why you can't enjoy Neverland.
Why is it a savanna and also a rainforest?
You have to let your whimsy take over.
I'm very whimsical.
Not enough. I know. You're old. It's hard to admit. But it's okay. We'll say it together. Say, I'm old.
I'm old.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We grew up. And that's why you struggle.
I don't really think... I think if anything, growing up has kind of shown me... You know how, like, sometimes you watch movies from your childhood and you're like, ew, this really doesn't hold up anymore. That, in some ways, is what this felt like. And that's, like, this is, like, no hate to the movie and no hate to anybody who loves Peter Pan. But just, like, it's never been my favorite, and I think I now fully understand why it's never been my favorite. Oh, the mermaids are so mean to Wendy. Why are the mermaids that mean?
Oh, we just tried to drown her.
That was my favorite part. Yeah, I don't know. Also, I'm mad because I'm going to have to... Disney needs to stop putting chests in their movies because it means I have to censor them when I put them in my edits. And you say, oh, Em, why don't you... No, for art purposes, I have to include it. Little parent warning. There's boobs in this movie. Not as bad as Fantasia. But there's a little boobage in this movie. Mm. Anyway. Good old clean family fun. B tier somewhere. I'll figure that out. Anyway, I don't have anything else to say. Do you have anything else to say? Okay. We hope you're having a good day. And if you're not having a good day, just remember to never smile at a crocodile. Because it could always be worse.
You could be in the jaw of the crocodile.
Yeah, so we hope you're doing well, and we hope to see you again soon. Goodbye!